Hi everyone, welcome to our channel. The markets are in a turmoil right now. So it's a good time to look at three bad investments that we all need to avoid. Because even in a best case scenario, these investments can leave you with a lot of regrets. And on a worst case scenario, they can potentially tank your portfolio. And it doesn't matter. You could be just starting your investment journey. You could be a seasoned investor, or you could be like us that who has achieved financial independence and retired. It impacts everybody. And probably by the end of the video, if you would do some self-reflection, you will realize that you've made these bad investments sometime because we did so too. So don't worry, stick around. This video will help you avoid these pitfalls and also make a big difference towards your financial journey. And during the video, I will also talk about some of the telltale signs that you can notice about these investments, and then you can know how to avoid them. So let's get started. So the first one is what I call the copycat investments. This is when you try and replicate someone else's success in your portfolio with an investment. It could be that one of your colleagues has said that they got a lot of success by investing in a crypto or a real estate or something like that. It could be a family member, it could be a friend, and even worse, it is someone from YouTube or social media or a so-called financial influencer who is saying that this is the cool investment and that could lead to success. Now, why this is a bad idea? Because there is no one-size-fits-all approach. Like we keep saying that it's not a good idea to follow someone else's corpus, it's also not a good idea to follow someone else's investment because you don't know what is their overall investment strategy. You may have a little idea or a limited idea towards their risk appetite, their time horizon, their overall portfolio. And most likely, we have very little idea towards their exit strategy and how they are hedging their risk in overall portfolio vis-a-vis when it comes to that particular investment. So an investment should be based on all your tailored needs rather than someone else's needs. Now, how do you get the telltale sign that you're making such a copycat investment? And that is that if someone asks you to justify an investment and you struggle to justify it. And it doesn't need to be someone asking you. You could ask yourself to justify an investment. And if your core answer to that is because this was suggested or told by XYZ person, then that means that that's a copycat investment. So avoid that. The second is an emotional investment. And there are two emotions that are the biggest enemies for investors, and that is fear and greed. And we get both of these. Fear when the markets are in turmoil like they are right now. And it leads us to make that impulsive decision to maybe panic sell because everybody panics. And as probably you would have heard from our previous video, even we panicked and we fortunately did not make an emotional investment. But yes, everybody of us goes through that fear. On the other extreme is the greed. And greed, personally, I think is, for me, it is what I would call the dopamine-based investment. That is when the markets are going up and you make an investment and it gives you a high and it releases dopamine in the brain, and that triggers us to make or get certain similar highs of making investments in future. I hope that in future someone does a research on dopamine based investments, like there is so much of research about the dopamine rush because of social media that people get. And I think personally, in my view, that the dopamine-based investment has accelerated a lot because of YouTube and social media, etc. And mostly because investments nowadays are one touch. That you go to an app and there are just two buttons, buy and sell, and it's just split second you can make that investment. It gives us very little time to think. Now, why these typical dopamine-based investments or fear-based investment ideas or bad ideas? Because they are impulsive. They make us do not rational decisions, but emotional decisions. And investments should be very, very rational and very little emotions. Now, what is the typical telltale sign? The telltale sign is if you're making a decision based on an impulse. So if you are on your app and you're just about to click buy and sell, you should ask yourself that for that particular investment, have you done your research behind it? Have you done all the study behind it? Or is it just that, like probably when you're on Amazon or some other shopping particular app and you just press click or a one-touch order and it's similar to that? So that's a telltale sign that you have to make sure that you note. The third investment is what I call the FOMO investments. This is the fear of missing out investments. This is when we feel compelled to join a particular hype or an opportunity because that's what seems to be the norm of the society or friends, etc. The FOMO-based investments can work both ways. It could work either into buying as well as selling. So, for example, right now when the markets are in turmoil, there is a lot of hype that people are selling, and there is this stock markets are going down because that's when people sell, and that's spiraling. So we all get this self-doubt or insecurity that are we doing the wrong thing of holding because everybody else seems to be selling in the market. So we start getting those doubts. So that's on the when it comes to selling part of that FOMO. On the buying side of the FOMO is when there is a new investment kid on the block, there's some new sexy product, be it a crypto. Even, for example, sometimes there is gold or even real estate that join the hype cycle because everybody is saying that in this particular city, the real estate is going crazily up, and you start doubting that you should also buy there. The typical telltale sign of a FOMO investment is when there is overemphasis on short-term gain rather than a long-term strategy. And that short-term gain could also be that when you're selling, that you're just trying to grab whatever small little gain that you had, or you're doing that stop loss. So there's too much of overemphasis on short-term rather than long-term. So overall, for all these three, there are certain things that you should generally ask yourself before you make any investment, and put these questions to yourself as a checklist before any investment. So the first one is that, can you justify this particular investment, that why you are even making this investment? The second is, have you done research about this particular investment? So do you know the past performance of this investment? What is the market review of this particular investment, the soundness? The third is, how does this investment fit into your overall portfolio? So it could be it fits in someone else's portfolio, but it may not fit into your portfolio. So you have to ask yourself that how does it fit into your portfolio, your risk profile, your time horizon, and your diversification strategy. The fourth you have to ask yourself is that, are you making this investment out of fear or out of that dopamine rush? That is it because everybody in the market seems to be exiting out of this particular investment? And lastly is that you should ask yourself that if I do this investment in a week's time, would I still be making this investment? So is this an impulsive decision that you're doing? So if you do this checklist and if you ask these questions to yourself, it'll help you avoid falling into the trap of any of these three investments. And believe me, it'll help you have a much more sound portfolio. Because it did help us too. Would love to hear from you what you think are the fourth or the fifth other bad investments that even us, we should avoid. And as always, we'll try our best to reply to each and every comment of yours. So I hope you found this video useful and insightful. Till the next topic, till the next video, and till the next location. Goodbye from me. Bye-bye.